Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Bienvenidos. My name is Joaquin Herrera, and I'm Director of Communications at the UTSA Libraries and Museum. We're here today to present you lessons learned from student programming at the University of Texas at San Antonio Libraries. UTSA prides itself on its diverse student population. 64% of students are from underrepresented groups, specifically from Latino, Hispanic, and Chicano identities. Nearly half, or 45% of UTSA undergraduates will be the first in their family to earn a bachelor's degree. Additionally, transfer students comprise about 39% of UTSA's total undergraduate population. As an institution expressly founded to advance the education of Mexican Americans and other underserved communities, the university is committed to ending generations of discrimination and inequity. Because of this commitment, we as staff of the UTSA Libraries try to promote and provide programming that engages with our diverse student population. One such program is a panel we hosted in September 2020, a few months before the US presidential election. The panel, which we billed as the voting power of Generation Z, was part of our Pizza and Research series. More than 20 million Gen Zers, those born after 1996, would have been eligible to vote in the November election. Our panel explored the youth vote, what motivates their choices, and how to promote civic engagement among those in Gen Z on our campus. The virtual event included information on registering to vote and finding polling places. It was hosted by our librarians, Ammi and Diane Lopez, who are here today to share some of the lessons learned from that event. I'll hand it over to them now so that they may introduce themselves. Ammi, can we start with you? Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and about your role at the libraries?
Sure. So I am one of the subject librarians at the John Peace Library, which is on our main campus at UTSA. And another important charge that I have, that's like part of my list of job duties, is student engagement and outreach. So back when we were in person, I did in-person events like faculty panels and lectures and everything like that. And now we're doing virtual panels like this one. So we've been like hosting talks and stuff like that. And it's been just a lot of fun, just exploring and seeing what we can try out in a virtual environment.
Definitely. It's been an interesting transition. Diane, can you introduce yourself and let us know about yourself and about your role at the libraries?
Yeah, okay. My name is Diane Lopez. I am a UTSA librarian also, but I am located at primarily at the downtown campus. Like Ammi, I lead the initiative for the downtown campus for student engagement and outreach. And, you know, something that I did when I first arrived was make connections with our Dreamers department that support and help undocumented students. I felt that was a necessary thing. And, but yeah, I'm a scholarly resource librarian, been here for a year now. And it was really great opportunity to do the voting panel for students, especially with the global pandemic and also with the polarizing political just identity that was happening in 2020.
Definitely. And I think that that was kind of one of the reasons that we approached this subject, because, you know, San Antonio is one of the largest majority minority cities in the country. And because of this, we wanted to cater this panel to our audiences. So Ammi, can you tell us a little bit about some of the research that went into putting this panel together?
Well, we were thinking specifically of just empowering our young, voters, like potential voters, I guess, because many of the like, especially the freshmen, like the sophomores, like lots of these students have never voted in a presidential election before. So this was like, because, you know, it's once every 4 years and they weren't eligible last time. So we were thinking it's important, especially like with everybody being on the internet and all the mis and disinformation getting out, like to like get back to, I guess, the roots of like voter education and reform. So like I didn't really know this until I moved here, but like as I've only been here for like 2.5 years, like in Texas, but San Antonio has like a really like rich history of, I guess, grassroots voter movements. And
Did someone knock at your door?
yeah, I guess we can edit that part out. It's like, I'm thinking it's Amazon, but who knows? Yeah, what was I saying?
Grassroots.
Oh yeah, so San Antonio has like this really rich history of like grassroots like political movements. So like, for example, like on the slide that we're showing right here, like back in the 70s, Willie Velasquez established the Southwest Voter Registration Education Project, which is also known as SVREP. In San Antonio, and like what they were created for was like, it was after I think the Voting Rights Act came into play, so, and the civil rights movement and everything. So they were trying to get more Latino voters registered, and because like I think what Willie Velasquez always said was like your vote is your voice. So he wanted more Latinos to get like to have a voice when it came to like voter reform and like all like in politics in general, because if you don't get to vote and speak up about that, then you are basically like disempowered. Like you end up not like your like the issues that pertain to your community will kind of get ignored. So he thought it was important to get as many people in his community involved as possible. And so I thought that was really interesting, like an interesting aspect of San Antonio history to explore.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think it's important to, inform our residents or students that there is this rich history of voting activism in our community. And so I think that was really important to show and to bring in guests that would kind of speak to that. Something that we had to keep in mind as well is that students, like all other American voters, would have to navigate heading to the polls during the pandemic. Diane, can you tell us or speak a little bit about why we pursued this topic and other considerations we had to keep in mind?
So yes, so dealing with the global pandemic, that right there presented already a barrier for so many students. And, and just so many people too, right? It created barriers for all of us and how we move and how we, communicate with each other and how we just did our normal daily things, from like grocery shopping to going to put gas. And so we knew, like, we had a feeling that this could be a barrier that could intimidate students to go to the polls, because of how much of the communication around the coronavirus was, social distancing, keep 6 feet apart, wash your hands a lot, wear a mask. And so there is already so many things that we had to always consider about. And then adding on top of voting, and students, especially Gen Z, being hyper aware of what's going on around the world due to they're so connected to social media and having that connection and being able to see what's happening and what's going on, and realizing how valuable their opinion and thoughts are, and how they share that with their own communities and within their own families. But it was very, trying to navigate just that aspect of knowledge of voting and knowing how powerful your voice is, but then at the same time, understanding how do you go vote during a global pandemic. It was like, that was, all of us kind of were like, how do we do this? How are we going to go vote? And how are we going to, just get to the polls with all the rules in place in front of us? And so that was a major contributor to how we thought about it. And, and so we wanted students to have an understanding of like, how do we prepare ourselves and make sure that we're registered and we got all our ducks in a row for voting? And at the same time, how do we be safe when we do go vote? And so I think those were like the high considerations. We acknowledge that our students are powerful and they are, they empower each other and they stand in solidarity with so many other groups. And we just wanted to make sure that they understood how to approach this with precaution, but also with power.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that was really important to really put ourselves in the space of a student who's not only trying to navigate, going to school online and adjusting their lives in that way, but also, empowering them, and what you just said earlier, to also continue the activism, continue the civic engagement that, is part of in-person instruction and in-person university community life. So thank you for that. Ammi, can you tell us a little bit about the why of all this? Why was it important to host this panel, and what did we hope students and community members would gain from it?
Well, to add on to what Diane was saying, we it's even before the pandemic, when it came to voting, everybody is confused, including, it's not just students, it's faculty and staff. I know the past elections that I voted in, maybe not presidential elections, I haven't been here that long, but past gubernatorial or just local elections, every time it happens, we all go out to vote. And then there's all this confusion about okay, can you go vote at any polling location if you vote early? When is early voting? So stuff like that. And then example, one of us will get on the phone and call the local office and ask them what for information. Everybody else, you have 10 other people waiting to hear what the verdict is. So, and I'm and we're staff and faculty, so we're we've been voting for a while, and most of us are, I would say, pretty involved and informed, or so we like to think. Yeah, so I'm and for students, if it's their first time voting, many of them might not know that, or they're getting their information from social media, which I will admit, it's actually pretty informative sometimes, depending on if you know where to look and everything. So it'll give you basic information about when to register, where to go and all that stuff. But you kind of have to know to look for it. And some people just will show up at the polls and not have any of the required, Texas is not, admittedly, it doesn't make it super easy to vote like some other states do. So you have to make sure you kind of have everything prepared before you go, because you might get there and then just realize you have to go back, and it's just frustrating and people might give up, and we don't want that to happen. So we were thinking, just if we were a student or a first-time voter, what would we want to know? So we kind of thought about, oh yeah, and maybe even just there are some people that feel they're very discouraged just because of all the stuff that was happening in the past 4 or 5 years. So they we had been hearing talk about just people saying what's the point of voting? So we wanted to just kind of get it across to them that even if it doesn't seem like there's much of a difference being made, they still have to try to they can't just not vote, because that's basically giving up your right to have a say in how things are run. So we wanted to, and that's why we brought up to go back to the history of San Antonio. There's been a lot of voter suppression and just all these efforts over the years from, I said, grassroots movements, and just lots of efforts on the part of communities of color in the area to try to get us to be able to have these the right to vote, and just I said, have a say. So we don't want to just toss that out the window after all the work they've done. So, and I do believe especially with our students, with Gen Z, young people in general, a lot of them, once they know the importance of it, how much weight is behind all of this, they do want to participate. Most of them, even if they don't believe it'll make much of a change, most of them do want to somehow contribute. So so we were thinking when we with hosting this panel, we can just kill two birds with one stone, get kind of just provide resources to people who are seeking them, and also just to to make sure that people aren't just going by random information we find on the internet that can't be verified, because the panel we gathered and everything, these are people that they know what they're talking about. So we wanted to make sure that we were giving accurate information and just encouraging students to get involved, and we wanted them to also just get used to participating in and becoming civically engaged students, and just staying that way even after their elections. So that was our intent with this.
No, yeah, that's great. And I think part of that is bringing in, inspiring people to speak and to kind of get them excited about engaging civically. You're right. And so Diane, can you tell us or give us a rundown of who the guests were and how they contributed to the conversation?
Yeah. So one thing that we wanted for our speakers was we wanted to have a student voice, so it can connect with the students. And then we wanted someone from the community, from San Antonio, a San Anto, grassroots person who was a part of it. And then of course we wanted a faculty member, because we know how valuable our faculty members are because of how dedicated they are to their research and how they investigate and how they are individuals who want to just provide information that's accurate and correct, like how Amy was mentioning earlier. So we had Diana Camargo. She's a UTSA student, public administration. And what's wonderful about her is that not only is she a master's student now, she was also an undergrad student at UTSA doing women's studies and, with, just learning about just gender identity and just race identity and just kind of informing herself in that. And then we had Manuel Garza, who, a true born and raised San Anto guy right here, who participated in the school walkout for rights, for voting rights. And then we have Dr. Patricia Jaramillo, whose focus and investigation focus and research focus looks at the Latino community and looks at how policies and how voting plays a role in our lives, and how do we, how does our identities as Latinos, impact the way that we vote? Because I remember being when I was young, and I'm from Brownsville, Texas, so I'm from just on the border, and now I've lived in San Antonio for like 10 years. Voting has never been easy. These are stories that my dad told me and my grandma told me, and there was always something that wanted to keep them away from, that kept them away from voting. And so we acknowledging that UTSA is a Hispanic serving institution, we knew that we're going to have students whose parents and grandparents and great grandparents who have voted in the past acknowledge the fact that there were so many barriers and obstacles placed in front of them. So we wanted to make sure that we had a representation of everybody to connect to. And so we wanted the grassroots individual, we wanted the student voice, and we wanted to have, our faculty present to just show how, to show students how invested our institution is in providing our students with the education that they require and the information that they require, so then they could go ahead and continue what our faculty is doing right now and become, hopefully future faculty members of UTSA.
Yeah, no, I think you bring up a great point, is presenting, the diversity of voices. But, Diana was such a great inspiration, or she inspired me, and she's, a master's student. So we're going to play a little snippet of her presentation so that you guys can see what she spoke about and what she addressed in the little clip from here. So I'm going to play this clip for you all.
Yeah, for Diana, as a Move Texas fellow and as a student, can you talk, I would love to hear your journey in how you have balanced your coursework, your civic engagement, also what sparked all this for you to be so involved at a young age?
Yeah, of course. So for me, it was easy, but before I even start talking about that, I think what got me even civically engaged was I'm a daughter of immigrant parents. I'm also a queer Latina woman, so that's already 3 strikes, right? People don't really want that. But I do remember when I was in 5th grade, I asked my teacher at the time, and I was like, girls can be stronger than boys, right? And he said no. So from that moment, I was like, what? And so I started questioning a lot of things around me, like why was my school the way it was? Why were people unequal? Like, why was the world like that? Then I think that being a women's studies major really pushed that even further. Being in the classroom and learning about inequalities and seeing how this system wasn't working for underrepresented communities really pushed me to just, I couldn't just like stop it as soon as I walked out of the door of the classroom. I had to be part of something. And during that time, I came across a quote by Mother Teresa that said, "I alone cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone across the waters to create many ripples." And I feel like when we do like a domino effect, like everyone is part of that, it's a domino piece. So I wanted to be a domino piece. So from that, then I started to try to get involved and be part of something. So I joined the Women in Leadership student organization on campus. I joined the Hispanic Student Association, where I had a leadership position, and I was able to create a panel about coming out as a Latinx person. But something that really like sparked everything of what I want to do for the rest of my life was move to Texas. They taught me the importance of voting. They also helped me understand the right way to vote. And just the importance of this work of getting young people registered to vote and being part of this political process. So when I was younger, my dad always told me that my vote represented my family because I'm a daughter of immigrant parents. So I registered to vote at the age of 18 without knowing how to vote or how that process works. I would just walk in the booth and I was like, okay, if they're a woman or a minority, I'm in. Whatever happens, I hope for the best. That's probably not the right way to vote at all. But MOVE definitely shifted that narrative. I learned how to have an educated vote. I learned what a voter guide was. I never heard of a voter guide. Also, I learned about issue-based voting. Instead of voting for a candidate because of who they are and how they represent themselves, look at the issues that that candidate is really putting forward. It's not about who the candidate is, but the issues that they're trying to represent and what best intentions they have for you and what you want the world to be changed.
Yeah, so that was a little clip of Diana. And I think part of the exciting thing about working in higher education, working at the libraries, is being able to provide all of these resources for students, and to see someone like Diana take those resources and just, amplify it is so inspiring. And I think it speaks to the work that we love to do for students, and how much we learn from students too. So with that being said, I know you guys at the libraries, as librarians, gathered a lot of research and information for the panel. Ammi, can you tell us a little bit about what resources we had available and how you gathered them? Also, what resources did the panelists provide, and how were we able to share those with participants?
Well, first off, I just wanted to say that Diana said whatever she said way better than I would have ever been able to say it. Yeah, like when she said, like, just hearing it again, even though I was there for the first time, I'm like, whoa, she's a good speaker. She gives me a lot of hope for our future. But yeah, like the resources that we ended up just sharing during the panel and everything, those were actually chosen by the panelists. Like most of the time, like they came with their own like knowledge base, and they're like, we have all this information that we would like to share. And lots of times it was just picking and choosing, because it was only a 1 hour panel. So it was just picking and choosing what we could showcase and what was important. So like, for example, with like Dr. Jaramillo, like she wanted to talk about some of the stuff that I brought up before, which is like what's required when you show up like on the day of, and also just like information on like how to cast an educated vote. Like instead of, I think they got rid of the option like where you just want to vote, for example, if you're like, I'm going to vote Democrat, you can just vote down the ballot like that, like straight ticket. So she talked a lot about that, like how a straight ticket vote might seem like a good idea, but like here's what you might want to consider. So they like it was very I guess you could say like it was not like, it was nonpartisan, I suppose, like this presentation. Like we weren't trying to get people to vote one way or the other. Like we were just well, first of all, we can't, we're state employees, but like but basically we wanted to just get everybody thinking about like when you're voting, like Diana said, like what what issues are you voting for? Like, what does each candidate represent? And sometimes you get candidates running who are part of the same party, like, so who do you vote for? So you have to, it's just kind of like giving people information about what to look for. So we shared some of that, and like we have listed here, like like Diana with her organization Move Texas, like they had put together some like really quick little videos on how to like register to vote and all that stuff. Like we definitely tried to like we targeted this panel like we said it the week before October 5th, which is like voter registration deadline. So we wanted to make sure that anyone who watched like had a chance to go out and actually register to vote. So there were videos on like that process and just why you should vote, why you should get involved. And like there were also like resources shared by like Dr. Jaramillo and Mr. Garza, like especially like Mr. Garza has worked in like across the country, like in efforts to like reduce voter suppression and get people to realize that voter suppression is going on. So like they just have so much like a wealth of knowledge on all of this stuff. So they shared like just like all these pages that you can go to get information on like just basically the voting, like I said, the voting process, like the history behind it. If you want to find information on things that are on the ballot, where do you go? Especially if you want to get something that's not necessarily like, okay, this is endorsed by the Republican Party or the Democratic Party or whatever. Like you can find like information that's a bit like it's a bit more objective, like just like, okay, this is the issue, like plain and simple. And they also shared a lot of like case history, like over the years, and like the opposite of voter suppression, like voter empowerment, like efforts made in the past, like why they're important, why they're still important today. And like, it was just, there's so much information. We gathered it all in this research guide or library guide, depending on what you want to call it. So we will link to it at the end of the presentation if you want to check it out, but it's on our library website. So that information is still accessible to everybody. Like we shared it right after the presentation, and we are going to keep that guide up. I mean, some of the information, obviously, it's like how to register for that election is no longer irrelevant, but all the other stuff, I think you can still consult for like future elections and everything. And we do want students to keep being able to pull up these resources if they need to for future, like future reference.
Yeah, and I will add that we recorded the session, and that also exists in the library guide and on YouTube. So we'll have that link to later. Now the last question is, the big question is, what did we learn? What takeaways can you share with viewers about our program? And what tips can you both provide for others who might want to do this at their schools?
Well, I'll start, right? I'm a strong believer, a huge strong believer of student voice. As a first gen, and like Diana, as a child of an immigrant too, like sometimes we are, we're raised to stay quiet, right? We're raised to stay quiet. We're raised to respect our elders, listen to the people who came in front of you, right? And while I hold that true, and I practice it, at the same time, I've also learned that when I was younger, how important it was to speak up and how valuable it was to go vote. And like Diana, I had the same experience. My dad, when I turned 18, the first like our father-daughter event was that he took me to go register to vote. And he, being a Mexican-American immigrant, he always knew how important it was to go vote. And he was a day laborer, so he had that. And so I realized like how valuable it is for, our students to carry that same kind of, not torch, because I don't want students to feel pressured, but to have that same kind of like idea of like how valuable their voice is and how valuable their opinion is. And, and also kind of just going back, like Diana, like my mom, she wasn't a US citizen. She was from Central America. So she realized how important it was for me to vote, and how she would always remind me like, tú necesitas a votar. Tu voz es la cosa que va a alentarlos más adelante. And so, yeah, like, I think it's just so crucial to have a young voice present and having a student voice and just having then community members and faculty just support it, right? To say, yes, I agree with my student. And the community member could be like, I agree with the youth. And how powerful that is for our young students and our growing students to kind of have that understanding that their opinion and their voice matters. And all we want to do is help shape it, and provide the accurate resources and the accurate information, so then they could build that stronger confidence when they do go step into the voting polls.
Yeah, I also think we did not do this on purpose, but it was very nice for our panel that we had like a young person present, and then like basically all the way to somebody who had been working in this arena for so long. Like, so you can see that this is ongoing work. Like, this is not something that just is going to stop as soon as like the elections are over. And like, because I feel like having that attitude is pretty dangerous. Like, a lot of people do think in that way. Like, and I know with like my friends and like our generation, like we've done that before, where it's just like, okay, well, the elections are over, like, yay, like let's wait like 4 more years, like the Olympics. But in reality, it's just like, it's an everyday thing, because like you like there is always going to be something to work on. Like, it might not be a big thing that's newsworthy, but it's still going to be important to like somebody in like the community. It's going to there are always ways to like help like improve like a lot, like the quality of life for people in your community. And I think like that's especially important here in San Antonio, where there's such a like disparity between, like, there's neighborhoods that are super wealthy and the neighborhoods that are super disenfranchised and all that. So and a lot of our students come from like these communities. So I feel like it's important to them to like give back and find ways that they can basically improve like everybody's like lives. Like, how can they help out their own community? And I like for this, like, I think it was important to have like someone like Diana there, because like she can talk about, and especially like with students, like they're so busy, and like so many of our students work, like they have like jobs outside of like their classes and everything, like, you know, paying jobs, like when they're working like service jobs, something like that. But they also want to get involved in like civic engagement and volunteer and stuff like that. So how can they do that? So like Diana, like in the course of the presentation, like did talk about how she manages to balance everything, right? And I think it's important to see like evidence, like right in front of you, like this person is like a student like you has, like, especially like a graduate student, they have so much work to do, and like she's been involved and like heavily involved in this kind of work. And she also like basically like she's participating in panels like this, like stuff like that. And then you can see like Mr. Manuel Garza, like he's been participating in walkout since he himself was a teenager. So like he hasn't stopped working, and he's like it's been however many years now, since I think 1969 when like he participated in his first walkout. So yeah, like we did ask him like during the panel and everything, like how to keep the momentum going, pretty much. And it's really nice to see that he's never, like, his spirits never kind of like never died down. It's like, well, I've been disappointed, but like I wouldn't consider this a failure. Like I just kept on like going. Like we moved on to the next the next project, the next step, the next goal. So like next undertaking. So yeah, like it was just very nice to see, like, to get to see all of that. Like it made you want to keep on going, like keep on trying. So yeah, like I guess like if you wanted to put together your own panel, just think in terms of like what assumptions we have, like about our students and about like even our community, like including staff and faculty, like what people know, what people don't know. Yeah, like just kind of like what like rumors, what misinformation you want to dispel, and like what kind of work you want people to keep on thinking about and doing afterwards. Yeah, like for me, those were like the most important like takeaways just from doing this panel. Like I learned a lot from it, and I hope everybody else did too.
No, I agree. And I think part of our part of my job is to promote the work that you guys do at the libraries and the collections at the library. And I think that what we did is we kind of provided the platform for students to talk about these issues, to engage with these issues, but also to promote some of the collections that we have at the library. And I know at the UTSA libraries, the Special Collections has an archive of Willie Velasquez's papers. He was, established the Southwest Voter Education Project. So we provided, information on that, how students can access that content through the LibGuides. And so here's some more resources that you can click on and visit if you want to find out more on the panel. And I think that we're just about done with time, but we want to thank you so much for joining us today in this discussion. And here's our contact information. Please feel free to email any of us if you have any questions, or if you're interested in doing something like this at your school, or if you do it, send us a link and we'll watch to see what other schools are doing. So we want to thank you all for joining us. And Ammi, Diane, thank you so much for sharing your insight. And thank you so much for the work that you guys did in putting this together, because I think it turned out to be such a really great, successful event at UTSA. So thank you so much. And we will see you at the Q&A.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.